Welcome back to the F5 podcast. Today, our team here is going to be discussing getting over fears. What is your biggest fear?
Kind of ridiculous, but being chased is one of my biggest fears.
By whom or what?
Anytime I have a nightmare, it's like I'm being chased, you know? And so it's like either someone trying to kill me or that's what my mind's saying. But that's just besides the point. I think we're going in a different direction.
That is a fear because, I mean, it might be an irrational fear.
It's 100% an irrational fear. Well, I think it's just too many movies I've seen, too many horror movies of like people being chased. Like the movie Purge, I think is a great example of like one of my biggest fears of like being the prey.
Yeah. But even I was reading, it's so funny that you had mentioned self-sabotage earlier today. For those of you that don't know, it was brought up. But I'm reading a book called The Mountain Is You, which I actually mentioned on the other podcast that we had. And there's a section where she is talking about fear. And she's sharing how even irrational fears are almost like an indicator of what is an actual fear underneath that. So for example, if somebody has an irrational fear of sitting in the passenger seat in a moving car, right? It just seems kind of weird.
You're out of control.
But you're out of control, right? So somebody who has that kind of fear, like you're saying, out of control. So what's the underlying need? There's always like a core need tied to that, which to that person would be more so like trust. Or something like that. And she brought up another example as well. I wish I could remember it right now. But now I'm so curious to know
The chase part.
Like what could the chase part be?
The underlying cause.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, okay, let's think of options of what this could be. It could either be that
because if you're
I like to be the person in control of what's going on. Like as far as like the prey versus predator.
Yeah.
I like to be the one in the front, I guess. I don't know.
You like to be the predator?
Yeah.
You mean in the back trying to chase someone?
No.
Just kidding.
Well, when I think about that, I think about you running away from something. I'm running away from danger.
Yeah.
So maybe safety?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Maybe
Safety in what way?
Well, I don't know.
Like you
We're
want
teasing
to
this out.
feel safe.
Secure.
And then when you have that irrational fear of being chased, it's because you do not feel safe in that regard and you don't want to feel like that. So at the underlying cause, it is safety or security. Maybe.
I think that's a really good one.
I think that is
Mystery solved.
All right. That is an option.
That is an option to think about. Like subconsciously, there's that, that need. I'm trying to get my thoughts together on it, but that's a really good correlation. That could be the case.
Sorry, I'm so distracted because there's a rep here that needs to pick up a check. And so I'm like texting Natalie. I'm really sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you grab it? Me. God, that's another thing. Phones. Imagine being in an emergency and your phone just like decides to, you're not open or text someone else or whatever. But
Not available.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be something to look into because it's underneath, right? It's not anything that's obvious because you think, okay, Drake, that's an irrational fear. Unless it's actually happening, it could serve you because you're able to get yourself out of danger. So I think that it has its purpose, but I think underneath it all, emotionally, subconsciously, that could be a thing.
Yeah, I was talking to Sabs yesterday about dreams, and I was like, would Yesenia be able to like, have some insight on this? And he was like, she totally could. And I was like, oh.
Oh, on this particular thing?
Just like dreams in general. Because I was
okay.
like, dreams are just so interesting, but they make you work for it, right? The information that you're trying to unlock or like try to figure out why you're dreaming those things.
Yeah. Sabs' question is always like, well, how did you feel when you wake up?
Well, no, for him it was like,
what was the feeling?
Have you, just randomly, he was like, have you been dreaming a lot more than lately? What's going on in your dreams? And I was like, I was like, actually, I have had more dreams than usual. So it wasn't anything that I like sent to him. He reached out to me and he was like, what's going on in your dreams?
He's
right
probably
now?
just reading your pattern. I'm just kidding.
Probably. Coming back to the dreams really quickly, because I actually had one that I very much vividly remembered, and I like told Charles like right when I had woken up this morning. So I'm doing a performance in February for Pole Fitness and Showcase or whatnot. And last night, my dream was in particular to that day or that evening. And for whatever reason, I packed my bag. I got to the studio and I like left my shoes out somewhere. All of a sudden, they're broken. And I only packed one pair of shoes. And I remembered thinking like, why didn't I prepare better? Like, why did I prepare better? Like, I should have brought at least 2 pairs of shoes. And then all of a sudden I couldn't find my costume or like my outfit. And I'm trying to like make do or make shift with like someone's like random ass clothing. And so I like woke up.
And it's just ridiculous in your
like in my head, right? And so like I woke up just like, of course I would start like thinking about this because I was like preparing some sequences last night. Yeah, I was planning and preparing some sequences last night that I want to put in my combination or like my showcase performance. And as I was dreaming it and then I had woken up, I'm like, of course I would think of this because my ultimate fear is really not being prepared for a show or performance or anything in life, right? Like showing up and not executing is just like a fucking fear of mine. Or like being in front of people and like not being able to do it the way I want it to be. And so as I was performing, even like, it's again, very silly where like the poles in itself were really slippery. And I just laughed. I was like, pole cleaners did not do this properly. Like their fault. I can't do this anymore. And I just like start rolling on the floor and I basically woke up. And then the underlying fear is just that, like not being able to prepare proper. Like I enjoy preparing. And if I don't do that to my full extent, I just feel like I'm a piece of shit. Like
probably because I think each one of us have had a situation where we didn't prepare or, go to the level of the information that we do know to do and we just fucked it up. I think that's why, because I have right? Yeah. I've winged something in the past and I've learned my lesson. So that's probably why it's a fear of you, because that's a fear of mine too, of like not being able to prepare enough. Because then you know what it's going to look like. And then you're just going to think about it after. You're going to think like very rationally of what people thought of you. Yeah. The question you asked or what you said. Totally.
Did not plan properly.
Play back things that I'm like, oh my God, that's what I said on that call. Or like, that's what I said to that person that is this so important person. Or maybe you backed up into a CEO's car. Like,
that was like outrageous to have that happen to you that day because like you were already kind of running a little late, I believe.
No.
Or you were not? You just randomly just like hit her car? Never mind.
So,
Never mind.
Things like that. But that's besides preparing. What's one of your fears?
Oh,
Jesus, I can't.
One of them. Well, I would say the fear of blood.
Oh, yeah.
Is a major one.
Yeah.
But I was trying to unpack why that is a while ago, which led me to believe my actual fear, which is passing out, like fainting.
Yeah. Because you fainted before.
Yeah. So I went down that. It's like, okay, well, is it really blood? It's like, well, it's actually really the feeling of fainting that is a fear.
In front of people or like by yourself or like in general? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then even taking that a step further, it made me think, okay, it's like, why is, fainting like such a big deal for you? What is the problem there? And I mean, have you guys ever passed out?
I almost did.
Yeah. Like that feeling sucks so much. So a part of me just almost wonders if it's like the fear of the emotion that comes with it just kind of like that intensity.
What emotion is it for you?
I
would think like passing out is like the fear of like the unknown. Like, are you gonna come back to? Like, that's what would freak me out.
That, I mean, the feeling is almost like panic.
Got it.
Your heart is racing and like you're out of control, really. Like you don't have control in that moment. So I think that's really big, which now I've correlated like that feeling of panic with other things, which I've shared with you. I think I might have shared with you. I had a therapy session where like things got super emotionally charged. And this was actually, and it was actually dealing with one of my other fears, which has a lot to do with the loss of a parent. Like that's
always been one of your fears.
It has been, yeah. And so I've been working through that with her. And even in that space, in that moment, I could feel my heart racing and my thoughts just going crazy and almost entering a space of panic. And so it made me realize that like those emotions, it's almost like I'm afraid of feeling the emotion that comes with it. So yes, the loss of a parent, but I'm almost like fearful of what I'm going to feel in that moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but just kind of unpacking that has been really, really eye-opening for me and just getting underneath the layers of, okay, what is really the problem here? And I think in that moment, I realized, and she walked me through my ability to handle big emotions. And it's almost like a learning process because I've never really thought about that. Like, I'm not really afraid of my feelings and, like anger but in seeing myself in all of this, I'm like, whoa, I actually am afraid of feeling certain things. And it's just the emotion piece. But there was a point I was trying to make with that. So I had that session and like my heart is racing and my mind is going crazy. So it's even in that moment where I'm completely talking about something else, there's no blood in sight. I'm kind of making the same, I'm afraid that I'm going to pass out just because I'm feeling the same symptoms that I feel in others.
Reflex,
And so it's been such a journey untangling all of this, but I'm really being able to see, okay, what's underlying all of this? Because I'm experiencing the same thing. And the fear is like, am I going to pass out right now? When there's like literally no blood in sight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more so that feeling, that emotion, that panic. So it's very interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
At the end of your session, did you end up feeling as if you were unable to handle big emotions?
No.
Or otherwise?
The opposite.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the opposite. So I don't want to say that it's now easy, but I've realized in that moment that I can calm my thoughts. It's a challenge, but I've realized in that moment, you're okay. Like, are you passing out? No. Are you alive? Yes. Are you safe? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it just made me realize that no, you can, because you're here, you're still alive. You have the capacity to handle big emotions.
Good.
So it's still a challenge, but it's becoming easier.
Nice.
So it's just nuts.
I think, especially with the fear of losing a parent, right? I've never dealt with that.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful my parents are still here. I think all of our parents are still here. I do like who brings it up to me a lot. Okay, so my mother-in-law, she's always like, this is besides the point, but I'll tell you about this. My mother-in-law is always like, you need to have babies because your mom is going to die soon. Like, she'll say shit like that.
Oh my gosh.
Right? She's getting old and she's going to die soon or something. Like,
Saying that about your mom?
Yes, because my mom's like 10 years or maybe 15 years older than her, right? Like my mother-in-law.
Hey, people don't just die from old age, lady.
I know, but she's very vocal about that. And so I'm like, God damn, like, okay, like I get it. Like my parents are old, they're like getting older, but I always come back to just the reminder of how, like, it's literally the circle of life. Like I have to come back to like, hey, if my parents pass away, they are still going to be here guiding me in some way, right? So like I'm very, very conscious about like always having a symbol for my parents. Because my symbol has always, especially for my mom, is like a sunflower. So like I've always had like this, like if a sunflower appears in my life, I do have a sunflower on my back because of my mom specifically. And she like loves it. That's like her favorite flower. And so I know that if at the end of it all, like I'm going to have these like moments in which like they're going to come and present itself.
I love that.
And it was weird because I never really, like, I think I thought about it maybe within the last year or two, specifically about this symbol for her. And then you go to her house and she literally has sunflowers everywhere, like everywhere in her freaking house. And I like brought it up to her one day and she was like, yeah, sunflowers are my favorite flowers. And I was like, you're kidding, because sunflowers.
You guys didn't talk about this prior.
No. And then I was like, dude, sunflowers are my favorite flowers. Like I didn't realize I probably just got it passed down from you somehow subconsciously.
Maybe you guys were sunflower farmers.
Maybe in the past life or something like that. So I always I'll think about that. And then with my dad, it's music. So like he is like this rock star who like wishes he could have been a rock star. Like, you know, he's like, his dream was to become a rock star. Yeah. And so it's going to be like oldies and music. And like, I'll hear, like if a song, like the Eagles in particular, like if I hear that song playing on the radio or whatever, I'm going to be like, okay, this is my dad. So I'm already like establishing like, again, like simple symbolism, but like for me, again, preparing for it to happen because I know it is inevitable. That it's going to happen.
Yeah. That's why I'm thankful too with therapy and going through certain things. And this is something that she was sharing with me. She was talking about how a lot of the times the intensity, you know, when a parent passes is because there's been a lot of work that like hasn't been done and now they're gone. And I felt that to be comforting because there are other things beyond just the fear of my parents passing that I like have to sort out with, like in relation to my parents. And she's just like, you know, it's so good that you're doing this work now.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing this work now and not after the fact. And I was like, oh, that is so good. And I'm so grateful for it. But I do love what you're sharing about having symbols because I can see how helpful, you know, that would be. Yeah. And yeah, it is one of those things that it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just accepting and just, I don't know. And I have noticed almost like a shift in my heart in that, that fear. I find myself being able to talk about it a little bit more. I'm getting teary eyed, but
I know, me too,
like,
for you.
It just, and that to me is just, it's a sense of getting over the fear. I don't think that it's ever going to be easy, or I don't think that you can ever fully prepare for that.
Right.
But I was thinking about this topic. It's like, what does getting over your fear actually mean? And to me, it means not necessarily that it's gone, but having the ability to still move forward and take action without being paralyzed.
Yep.
Or taking action in the right direction, because you can take action in a way that, you know, doesn't serve you. But I think that that's what it means. Like being able to move forward in the existence of fear, which is courage.
Yes.
Essentially. Like it doesn't go away.
No.
It's still there.
I was randomly thinking about this last night where I'm like, how do we get under fear?
Oh, when were you
under me? Yeah. I knew you guys would get that. And I laughed myself to sleep. I was like, well, how do I get under fear first before I get over fear?
I love that. Yeah.
The underlying issues or the underlying fear. But I laughed in my head and I thought you guys would definitely understand that. So thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to share like the two different types of fear.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember reading this from Tara Moore's Playing Big, which if you remember, I recommended to you. And I had never heard fear talked about in the way that she shared, and I loved it. So she talks about two of them, and this comes from like a Jewish rabbi's teachings.
Yes,
And,
I remember this.
Do you? It's so good.
It is good. It is good.
So there's two types. So the first one is pashad. I don't know if that's how you properly pronounce it. And the second one is yira. But pashad is projected or imagined fear, the fear whose objects are imagined. That, in contemporary terms, is what we think of overreactive, irrational, lizard brain fear, the fear of horrible rejection that will destroy us, or the fear that we will simply combust if we step out of our comfort zones. It's just like very irrational fears.
Like public speaking. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second word, and these are in Hebrew, is yira. And yira is described as the fear that overcomes us when we suddenly find ourselves in possession of considerably more energy than we are used to, inhabiting a larger space than we are used to inhabiting. It is also the feeling we feel when we are on sacred ground.
Can you repeat that one again?
Yeah. So the fear that overcomes us when we suddenly find ourselves in possession of considerably more energy than we are used to.
Got it.
Inhabiting a larger space than we are used to inhabiting. It is also the feeling we feel when we are on sacred ground. So for me, yira, the way that she kind of goes and she elaborates more on it, it's almost like that sense of inspiration. Like, have you ever felt like that energy of being inspired, but it's like also very scary at the same time? And so that is the kind of fear that you want to lean into.
Love that.
Would you think that this goes hand in hand with the imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would say so, because the imposter syndrome, and I've been reading more on this too, but it's almost like the imposter syndrome is the fear of you not being able to do something, right? So it almost like, I think it almost becomes a sign of like you reaching the end of your comfort zone. And we always talk about how success and just like
Is on the other side of
other
fear.
side of fear and on the other side of your comfort zone. And so I think that this definitely falls in line with that. It's like, yeah, it's scary, but there's also this energy where you're feeling very inspired, and it's one of those take the leap, as opposed to the other one that is more, like you're saying, more irrational, that is going to keep you from actually accomplishing what it is that you desire. So I love it. I love how she explains it, because I'd never thought about it that way at all, ever. Like, oh.
I love that. I love that explanation, because I do, like when you said, like, have you ever felt that? And yes, I feel like, especially with like our group coaching program that we're working with, I'm always very hesitant. Like I shared with you guys, like in the beginning, like, am I even capable of being an accountability coach, if you will? And at the end of it, I've had them now for the last couple of months, and I realize I feel even more capable because at the end of the day, I love listening, right? And I love observing, and I love giving my honest and most authentic feedback as best as I can. I still have this imposter syndrome sometimes, but then it's just like getting over it regardless, because it's like you said, you're in a space that you feel like is like I'm very small, but you're in a space that I'm here to fill up. And I like, I think I talked about this a while ago, like when I moved into my new spot, I just had the ability to create more, because I didn't feel like I was closed off, or like, what's the word? Claustrophobic, right? It's so, which is also a fear in general for me because of that. And I love that you just shared with like being very inspired to take action, because even with the event that we have next week, I have almost like these like fights with myself internally as if I have to make these decisions on my own because Big Boss is not here. And I'm like, everyone's looking at me, like our team, like Frank, Jenna, like our team is like looking at me to make sure I make these decisions. And it's hard sometimes because you're like, am I making the right decision? And like, even in the morning, I'll be like scrambling to get things finalized. And I'm just like, why are you just overthinking it? Just pull the freaking trigger. Like at the end of the day, it's all going to work out. But I come back to like with everything that we're doing that feels very new. But I still feel like I have the skills in itself within the last couple of years to just execute properly. So why am I freaking out so much? It comes in waves, honestly, till this day. Yesterday morning, this morning, it's just like, will we ever really get over it? No. There'll be other fears and like obstacles in the ways. Yes. But how can you navigate through it? Like you shared, breathe. And I have, the support. You guys are always just like, oh, well, you got this, right? It's like, you really do got this. You know what I mean? And so just come back to it. I'm like, I breathe and we'll get through it and all is going to be fine.
All is well.
How do you think that we've been able to build that muscle of just like, everything is going to be fine, right? Because I've had a lot of conversations recently where I'm either coaching someone through something or whatnot. But for me, it's like, don't worry. Like, we're going to figure it out. And if for any reason you just don't have the capacity to do it, I'm there for you.
Yeah.
And their side of things is, no, it's not fine. Don't you see what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think we've been able to build that muscle of perspective when it comes to, if someone's looking in from the outside, there's two sides, right? There's two sides of a perspective. There's either like be the victim and kind of sit down and go like, well,
that's me.
Yeah, like, or, life is happening to me versus the life is happening for me. And at the end of the day, this isn't going to kill you with the, usually there's no life or death situation happening when I'm talking to someone. And they don't see that. They don't see the like, whew. I know that obviously there could be experience in it, like been there, done that. Don't worry, we're going to be fine. But how do you guys think that we can help people build that muscle?
That's a great question. I think that your job as their coach or leader is to be able to provide that perspective so that they can get there.
Right. It's like, and for me, it's like in my head, I'm very frustrated with like, it doesn't matter what I say. Doesn't matter how much support I put in of like, you feel like you need to tap out, tell me and I'll come in. I'll tag in. Like I'm going to help you through this entire process. And there's this like tension between me and the other person of like, no. Like, look at me. This is what's going, I'm not like, well, we're going to figure it out. Whatever. Tell me if you're good or not. Like no, I'm here for you. I'm going to help the best I can. Whether it's on the sales rep side of things, like throw me into the field. I know we don't have headcount for that specific store. Or, someone, is missing. I'm going to run campaign. Like I'm being put into these things because I'm like, I'm here. I want you guys to see that. But other people are kind of like, well, I don't know what to do. This fucking sucks.
Man, it really comes down to helping them find their own purpose and their like helping them see their vision or find clarity in their vision, right? So it's like, it might, like you said, I actually really loved your post that you had recently where you're like, losers do this and winners do this, right? Yeah. And so this is almost like in the same realm of things. I think we have been, it's like we have been conditioning the last few years. So it might feel easier for us to feel this shift in our brain.
Yeah. And I don't judge the person, right? Yeah. I don't judge them just like Sab says, someone awake can't judge someone that's sleeping. Yeah. You can't judge them for how, because if you go back and go, okay, if I was in their position, if I was,
would I think that way?
Would I think that way?
Because you probably were in that position years ago.
100%. So, but it's like, how do I help them? But then there's also the, like, you can't help them. They have to
To help
figure it out
themselves. Yeah.
Well, when you backtrack and look at your journey, like Molly's saying, there's been a lot of conditioning. There's been a lot of exposure to knowledge. There's been a lot of exposure to experience, and also having a really good leader, a really good coach. You know, I think that Sabs has always done a very good job of allowing us enough space to make the mistakes. You know,
100%.
taking action and you know, either we make a mistake or we don't, but we learn from it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the kind of space that you need to create for your team in all things, allowing them to gain that experience and having that exposure and constantly, you know, suggesting different kind of content, different kinds of books. But I think that the person really has to want it within themselves. And I think that the right people do, right? You go off and you read books that I don't tell you to, and I do the same and you do the same. Because I think that there's this internal need to, or desire to grow. And I think that people, if people have that, you know, they're more receptive to whatever it is that you have to share.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those, like, yeah, you can't really change their mindset, but you can offer that space that will allow them to do that.
Right. And I think that way too, the same with the analogy of like, you can't bring a horse to whatever the water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
But you can salt the oats, which is essentially changing what is going to factor them into getting thirsty, right? So it's like, okay, my example, my content, the way that I walk them through things, I hope is enough for them to be like, how did she get to that? Well, she's really big on self-development. She's really big on reading and things like that, or like trying to find resources to help her through certain situations. But at the same time, in my head, I'm like, I don't think they see that, you know?
Well, I think part of it too is allowing them to see that you are a human being.
Yeah.
And allowing them to see the journey, the growth journey. Because a lot of times you look at somebody and without knowing their backstory, you think, oh, they've always been this way. I think at this point we know better than that. But sometimes people who aren't in that mindset do think, oh, they're just built that way. But showing them that
I'm getting hot about this. I feel the same thing.
Showing them that you are a human being who also goes through struggles, who also needs to seek out more information to develop, to grow, allows them to see, oh, like I can do that too. I am capable of achieving that as well.
I feel like there is that sense of people think I was built this way. Which
How so?
Just the comments that people make of like, wow, you speak so well, or like the words you choose to say as opposed to other things, like, or you know, your day. Like if I walk through my schedule and they're kind of like, oh, she's just made this way. Like, no, I've worked really freaking hard at it.
I was going to say that. I think the language you choose to use is so important in that, because saying I've worked really hard to get here is telling, right? Like I didn't just get here. Like I've had to work. And I think that you've done a really good job. And I think that you've been really great about sharing that journey, at least in this podcast or even with us. I think even when you talk about you know, running that panel and how much you planned and how much you prepared and just being open about those things is telling about the work that goes in to be able to show up in this way.
Right.
So I think that as you continue to be open in that way, it allows people to see your humanity, and it gives them that inspiration, hopefully, that they need to be able to achieve those things as well.
Right.
But I think it's just being open. And like I said, I think that you've done a very good job about that, at least within this circle. I don't know how open you've been in your other circles, but I see it. And I've actually always really appreciated that. I'm like, oh, look at Trey, you know, just kind of being open and sharing. That's awesome.
I don't know. I think this brings us back to our other podcast of imposter syndrome. Like, I feel like I don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to talking about how much I've put in, you know, as far as like the rep side of things, because they're like, well, that's cool. In my head, I think this. well, that's cool that she's put in so much work over here, but what qualifies her for over here, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how I see it in my head. And I'm like, I don't want to like brag about, I've been here for 9 years. I started as a front desk. Now look at me. But at the same time, I'm like, no, fucking look at me, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've been, when people call on me to do something, or like, recently we just restructured the office time. So like meetings and whatnot, so that all the owners are more integrated with each meeting and everyone is actually doing something, as opposed to the same 2 people doing the same thing. So they're like, Dre, you got morning meeting? And I was like, fuck. And I was like, okay. And they're like, I'm just kidding, but do you want to? And I was like, okay. So I started doing campaign, which I'm like, what the fuck qualifies me to do that? But it's like, because I said yes.
Yeah.
You know, there's other people that are like, no, I'm okay. Like, I still need a lot to learn, whatever. And I was like, fuck it, throw me in. Yeah. I don't know. I'll learn from it. But I'm trying to get over that of like, I want to make sure that I feel qualified. I know I am. Yeah. It's just I want my guys, my people to know, hey, I'm putting in this work because I know it's going to get me somewhere else. It's going to give me a different result, as opposed to all the other people that are just like, well, she's built this way. It's like, no, I'm doing the things that make me feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. Because I know on the other side whether it's going to teach me, like Chris was saying, he was like, not my Chris. And he was like, do campaign, because he goes, I learned so much from doing campaign. And I was like, fuck it, let's do campaign. First time I did campaign, all the guys, which I love, and I take criticism 100%. And they were like, okay, way more energy next time. Next time, go through this a little bit slower. And over here, really praise that person. And I was like, I wrote it all down. And I was like, next time, I got you. Yeah. You know, like, I'm going to continue to do that. But it's like, I want other people to see that. Yeah. But I don't know. I have to be more open, I guess. Yeah. Therapy session for Dre, apparently.
No, we're working through it. It's okay. This is why we're here.
Exactly what we were talking about. Yeah. I think imposter syndrome is just a sign of you stepping into something bigger, which is good.
Yura.
Which is really, really good. Yes, exactly.
Super Yura.
Yeah. It's a good
Am I saying
thing.
that right?
And that's why
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know how you pronounce them, but let's just go with it.
I think that's why I have such an urge to want to be with our admins more, because I think that we are dropping the ball when it comes to their development. Although, of course, they're being developed maybe on their own and then in their departments. But I think that we need to be so much more intentional with what they're learning, because I don't want them to go into a meeting at KTS and not be able to critically think about what the speaker's talking about. As opposed to our reps, we give them that like self-development on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, I want the girls to be a little bit more refined in just thinking, you know? That's just how I see it. And that's why I'm like, maybe like something I shouldn't be worrying about right now because I have so many other things on my plate. But I'm like, I want to do something with the girls, you know, that they want to learn.
Palm Springs retreat, our little
Oh, that would be fun.
Like session where we can do development
we still
things.
need to decide on the goals and whatnot. But I think that would be cool because then we could do yoga, whatever. This is a side conversation.
I know we could totally keep things up.
But think about your people, like people that are listening. I think it's your number one product is your own people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is why I'm obsessed with the promoting recruiters and them being able to coach and train other people as well.
I roll. Just kidding.
Bum ups.
I know that is amazing. And I'm like, my team isn't big enough yet, but I'm like, I still want to make sure that we're integrating our girls so that they don't feel like, oh, you know, although we say, you know, performance-based here, this isn't seniority, but then they still might have that story of like, well, I got to put in like 10 years to be able to be a Sandra, a Molly,
Well,
I
think that's part of the inspiration to coach them and teach them, because even for me, not just for the PRs, but just the recruiting team as a whole, I think that I have learned so much, but I think that certain things have been a lot slower for me. And I don't want that for people.
You're the one building the road. That's why it's taken so long. So that everyone else can fucking cruise through and know exactly what they need to do.
That's where I find my energy, because it's like, same as you, I don't want it to take
This
a
long
whole decade for them to achieve certain things. And it's not completely up to me, obviously, but I want to do my part to cut that time way in half and even more than that, so that people have a roadmap to get to where they want to quicker. Because I don't want this. I don't want it to take that long for other people too. So I'm with you on that. And I think that kind of mentality fuels me as well. But I have also found that kind of mentality to burn me out. So I have had to find ways to be intentional about the way that I show up and how I, choose to coach and develop people and just kind of trust, right? Like just be able to trust that I'm doing my part and I'm hoping that they're doing theirs, and combined,
magic.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think, in the realm of like getting over your fears, right? So why do you think you want to build this road so much so for yourself and your team? Like why? Like, because do you feel like if you don't, you are going to set everyone else up for failure? Like, I'm trying to come back to our topic here.
I feel, and this might be selfish to say, but I feel like no one else will do it. And so I have it. I was given the opportunity to do it, so fucking do it. Because I feel like, God forbid, I leave.
Now what?
Who has... I don't know.
Dre, if you fucking left, this whole fucking ship is going to sink.
No. I don't. But at the same time, I'm like, who else is going to do it?
No, I know.
And I think that that's why, just weirdly enough, even the day that you called me to hire me, I felt a weird energy that day, a good energy that day.
Yira.
That something great was going to happen. Right. And I think that I always go back to that moment because I'm like, there's a reason why I was put here. And although it was 9 years, to me, 9 years have flown by, And what we've been able to accomplish in 9 years is awesome. But I still feel like there's so much more. And I was put here for a reason. And I like, if I was gone, I don't feel like anyone would step into that same reliability, that same hard work, that same work ethic. Yeah, there are people out there like me, 100%. But I don't know that would be, I don't know. That's why I think I've been building that road for others. Because I don't think a lot of people have that, like grit to build a road. They don't have that feeling of like, I will figure it out. Even if I fail, I will figure it out. I think people just right now are expecting to come in, be told what to do, and that's it. And none of us were able to do that, right? Like when we started, maybe.
Yeah.
But then after, it was like we were all given our own opportunity to build a road. And it was kind of like, figure it out.
Yep.
And even Sabs was like, I think, the greatest part, and I think that a lot of people, although yes, we were given great coaching with Sabs, but at the same time, a lot of it was the figure it out without having a template of what to do.
That's true.
So it's like, I want to give people that same option and same opportunity, but at the same time, I'm like, are you willing to figure it out? Or are you someone that just needs high direction, high support? I don't know. I think that's just how it is right now. And Sabs was saying that too. Like, there's a lot of people that are just okay and just want to come into work and be told what to do and clock out, and then they're done for the day. And successful people, that's not what they do. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I think for me, I've seen this position and this role as a platform to have a meaningful and fulfilling career. Like, to me, being able to coach and train and develop people in recruiting goes beyond just recruiting. I think that it puts you in front of yourself. And to me, that's that's where I find my motivation, where it's like, if I can help change somebody's mindset in this area using the vehicle and the platform of recruiting, like, to me, that's winning, because I know how much other people have helped me in shaping my mindset and changing and allowing me to grow. And I love that. And I'm thankful for it, because there's been so many people along the way that have helped me to helped me condition my mind. And even still, I'm learning and I'm growing, but I'm so appreciative of that, of everybody in this business that has helped me in that way, because it not only helps me perform better on a daily, but also personally. Like, it just kind of goes back and forth. It's so they bleed into each other, and it's made me a better person. So in recruiting, in coaching and training people, the tools that they need to recruit top talent, to be top performers, that spills into their personal life as well. And so that's why I love having this opportunity to build this roadmap, because in the process, I'm finding it fulfilling to be able to impact somebody's life in other ways that I wouldn't be able to. And so I think that, again, that for me, that's where, I don't even know if I'm off tangent with your question, but that's where I find energy to do the day-to-day and build that road. Yeah, build that road, because again, in the process, I'm changing lives. Yeah. In the small ways that I might not ever see myself, I might not ever see the full impact of, because I don't follow them through their entire journey. But I have evidence of the people that have done that for me, and all of the ways that they've coached me and trained me or talked to me, or the advice that they've given me. It's just been a brick. Yeah. And so that collectively has made me who I am. And I know that in my leadership, I can be a brick in somebody else's life. Yeah. I don't have to change their entire life. I just have to add on to it. And to me, that's fulfilling. I love that. And again, I see it as a vehicle, as a tool to help people, because it goes beyond recruiting. There's way more. It just works that way. Yeah. In my opinion.
I think our culture of people helping people is quite evident here. Whether they're here with us for a month, 6 months, 2 years, whatever it is. I think you definitely see the difference in them, or at least things that they've learned from us, which you don't see in a lot of other companies.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, ladies, for sharing your fears.
Seriously.
Being chased by a clown.
Being unprepared with my shoe brakes.
Fainting.
All right.